AI agents compress the time from idea to PR. But trust doesn't accelerate automatically. The bottleneck shifts downstream to reviewing, releasing, and evaluating it safely. This is the Bits release page, which summarizes my PR progress. Instead of bouncing between GitHub, my CD provider, feature flags, dashboards, and Slack to figure out the state of my change, Bits release brings it all into one place.
Hello, my name is Jeremy, and welcome to This Month in Datadog. I hope you enjoyed last month's episode, which was a Dash recap. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It was absolutely action-packed. This month, we're going to sit down with two of our product leaders to dive in a little deeper. Let's get started. Our first guest is Ruxanda. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your journey to Datadog.
So this feels like a lifetime ago. I was working on observability on GCP. So I worked on anything that was containerized. I launched SLO monitoring. I focused on service-oriented monitoring. Then I had a stint at AWS running ECS. And then went back to Google for another 3 years and worked on AI features in Google Search. And I wanted to see what it feels like to work with one of the leading companies in observability, focusing on a brand new experience for me. So I'm not working on containers anymore, which is a lot of fun. But now I am getting closer and closer to the thing that I love the most, really thinking about how the end users use our applications. So a lot of the work that we do on synthetics and release are at the core of that. And we're spending a ton more time recently thinking about developers.
We are, and that's some amazing experience that you're bringing. So when I think about agentic workflows and agentic AI, it's really now embedded into most of our developer workflows. But how would you say, you mentioned release, how is it impacting how we're thinking about releasing?
This is such an amazing time to have this conversation because the way that we are writing code has fundamentally changed in such a short period of time. And I think everyone is trying to figure out how we're going to take the training wheels off. Because we're not just building prototypes anymore. We need to build applications that are ready to put in production. And when this conversation started, there is a lot of AI slop and the code is not good quality. We have matured to a point where now the code is good enough to actually bypass a lot of checks and balances. But it cannot bypass what is so human, which is trust. So we need to think about not just how we write the code and how we build a PR, which we are able to accelerate incredibly well with tools today. However, how do we take this to the last phases of evaluation and release? And there are no scalable solutions there. And this is where we thought we could actually play a pivotal role of figuring out evaluation and release for our customers.
So you mentioned developers, and I know you speak with a lot of them, and trust is unbelievably important. As you're talking to developers, what would you say their top challenges are these days?
So what is fascinating is that sometimes the same problems that existed before still exist today. But unfortunately, those problems are accelerated, exacerbated in many ways. So you still have to face the same maintenance issues that you were facing even 5 or 10 years ago. You create a test, you have an idea what the workflow is, and you create a test, and the moment you finish writing it, it's obsolete because your application has changed. So now you have to deal with the same problem, but it's 10x. A lot more features, the movement is much faster. How do you make sense of it? But what is fascinating is that now we also have brand new problems that we've never faced before. So it's before you would think about your checks and balances of these very well regimented checks. If A happens, B happens, you check if B happens correctly. If yes, checkbox completed and you move on. But in a non-deterministic world, you don't know what B is. There are an infinite variety of possible outcomes and responses that could be okay. And you have to actually build testing and infrastructure that reacts to that in real time. Because otherwise, you can't scale. You can't test with the same tools you had before. So your only option, you're either going to do this manually as a human, or you really think about a non-deterministic workflow, which is hard.
It is.
It's
And
a
given
hard
the
problem.
amount of code that's generated, doing it manually, the world has changed.
It does not scale. It's
So-
not an option anymore.
It's really not. And that's a great segue to Dash. So you were in the keynote at Dash. Excellent job, by the way.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about what you announced.
So we announced a brand new set of capabilities that Bits has that are geared to the developer persona, because what we've seen is what developers face is such a unique problem, completely different than operators and other functions within the company. And we really wanted to get to the core of how can we empower them to move with trust at the same speed as AI is generating code these days. So we launched to preview both Bits release and Bits testing. Bits release basically builds, based on a PR, an entire validation plan. So you don't have to think about what do I need to do. It actually outlines that plan for you. And Bits testing is able to take care of the entire generation of the testing scenarios, execution of those testing scenarios, and do that in real time for both deterministic and non-deterministic use cases.
Amazing. So we've already established we can't do this all manually. So why can't AI just completely handle releases / goal, make releases great?
I think AI can do a part of it. The problem is not just you create something, you release it, but now you actually have to deal with the maintenance. So at some point, there is a reckoning that needs to happen. So you can kick the ball, down once or twice or 3 times, but it's going to blow up in your face if you don't actually take a proactive approach to it. So what you can do today, you can create a bunch of local tests with AI that can run once. You can ship the feature, but now it's in production. What do you do then? You actually have to start from scratch. So what Bits release and Bits testing can do is create a testing scenario from you in your local environment that carries all the way to production. So once you actually have released this feature and you have real traffic, it continues to test that functionality in perpetuity on a schedule. So instead of having your customers reach out to your support team and complain about a feature, you are proactively announced when something goes wrong. So it's all about understanding that this is an entire workflow. It's a flywheel, and you cannot just fix one portion of it. You have to think about how it's sustained over time. And that's why it's like AI can help you just kick that can like one more step, but at some point you still have to deal with the problem. So why not be proactive and deal with it from your local environment and use that testing framework that takes you all the way to production? Much more sustainable.
It is. So you're in a non-deterministic world, you're monitoring releases, there's a lot of variables, there's a lot going on. As you were, building this out, what was the most surprising thing you learned?
Oh, there were so many fun conversations. And I think it's at the core of it, one of the things that is important to mention, because there's just so much talk about AI, at its core, there are human beings that are working on incredibly hard problems. And these problems evolve and change over time. And being able to have tooling that helps you really focus on what you are there to do. What is your core job? Your core job is to develop incredibly cool products for your own organization, not to waste your time really thinking about testing scenarios. So being able to actually take off of the plate of these engineers something that is time-consuming and tedious, incredibly repetitive, and give them back the time to actually do the creative thinking that's really impactful for their business. That was the most surprising thing. Every technology problem, it's a human problem. And it was so beautiful that in a lot of these conversations where we realized that giving that time back and really allowing people to focus on the things that they're more passionate about,
Yeah.
it is really magical.
That's exciting.
Yes, for me it is
No,
immensely.
it's super exciting, which brings me to what's next. Where do we go from here?
It's the roadmap is huge. And how much time do you have? So some of the things that we deeply care about is to really ensure that we cover the release and testing scenario end to end. So we're looking of going deeper pre-release into your local environments, being able to be in the hearts and minds of developers from the moment that they have their first idea. And as they are engaging with an AI agent to develop the code, we can work in parallel to actually start developing the testing scenario. So we don't come in at the end. We actually are part of the experience as you're building your code, as you're ideating from it, as you're creating your skills and your plans for what you want to develop. Testing is part of it. So we want to be as close to the initiation of an idea in order to bring people along. And that is an immense amount of complexity, as you can imagine. And it would require for us, for what to build, to be flexible across the very different platforms that our customers. We want to be there where they are building their code. We want to be there with them in that experience and not have to force them and drag them into something else. So that's kind of an exciting part of the experience. We're also really focusing on trying to create experiences when we get all the way to production that allow a testing scenario to be quite complex, that will allow you to not just look at your browser or kind of front-end application, but really leverage everything that we have in Datadog. This becomes a new lens by which you organize all of the telemetry, all the information that you have. So thinking about all the layers of the application and connecting that all the way to the PR. So when you have to do your troubleshooting, this becomes a way to enter that space and organize all the information that you have through the lens of how your end user is experiencing the application.
Which is what matters, right?
Is the only thing that matters.
Yeah. So much opportunity.
I know.
So viewers are going to be excited. Where should they go to learn more?
Perfect. So yes, it's in preview, but we are very interested in getting as many customers to use this as possible. So please click the link and get access to it and use it and let us know what you think about. We are looking for a ton of feedback.
Amazing. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you.
Jonathan, thank you so much for joining.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. So let's start with what you're working on here at Datadog.
Sure. Yeah, I work in product and specifically on our Bits suite of products, as well as our external agent experiences, such as our MCP server.
Great. So we announced that Bits Chat went GA at Dash.
Correct.
So for someone that's a longtime user of Datadog, the product, how would you say that this changes their workflow, how they interact with Datadog?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, Bits Chat is what you probably expect hearing about the name. It's a chat interface within Datadog that enables you as a user to use agents, use bits to do work for you. And it can do things like correlate data, analyzing data, finding root cause of problems that you may have identified, build artifacts within Datadog, like dashboards, writing queries without you having to know the specific syntax that we have in Datadog, and so on. So basically everything you would do as a human user in the platform, Bits can help you and do that work on your behalf.
Okay. And then what else did we release at Dash related to Bits that you're really excited about?
Sure. A lot of things. So one specific feature of Bits that we released is memories, which worked for all of our Bits suite of products. And the objective here is, every company has this great engineer who's been here for 10 years and who remembers everything, right? That incident that happened on that specific application 3 years ago, they know exactly what happened, and that helped them troubleshoot the next problem and even avoid the next problem. So
there's always an engineer. When you think of a problem set at a company, you know them by name.
Yes, exactly. We have a few of them here. And so we're trying to make bits, as good as that, all tenured and excellent engineer. And one way to do this is providing bits with memories. And so whenever a user provides a key piece of information through the chat, we're trying to make it so that it remembers that. If you run an investigation, a root cause analysis with bits, and you mark the root cause as a user as the correct root cause, then we will remember that. We also obviously ingest a lot of telemetry data on behalf of our customers, and so we're also trying to extract key facts, key memories from all of that telemetry data, so that again, bits can access to that when troubleshooting an issue, when having to do work on your behalf.
And I was really excited about memories, and one thing that I think fits in with that is skills. So how would you say those two work together, or just skills by itself, to better understand your environment?
Absolutely. So yeah, we have two types of skills. Skills that we have built at Datadog for our customers. So an example of that would be, the dashboard creation skill, where we really encode all the knowledge that we have about how to use Datadog, how to use dashboard, how to build the right dashboards. And so those come out of the box for our users. And particularly the skill to create dashboard is very delightful, and you can create a very complex dashboard in 2 minutes when it would have taken you, probably an hour or two in the past. The other type of skills we have are custom skills created by users, where and it's a pattern that you'll find in coding agents and other type of agents, where as a user you can create a skill and encode specific knowledge that you have about how to accomplish a certain task, and that skill will be called by bits. That set of instructions, that set of information, will be used by bits when accomplishing that task. And so that's a way, again, to make bits that tenured engineer who knows specific things about your system that are hard to know if you haven't been in the company for a while.
The two together sound really, really powerful, which is great.
Absolutely.
So changing gears just a little bit, developers have always lived in their IDE, and increasingly they're living in their CLI. And I know when I'm in developer mode, I really don't want to leave where I am.
Right.
So how are we thinking about how bits chat and just bits more broadly are meeting you where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and I'm the same. My work life is in Cloud Code and Codex these days, alternating between the two. So, yeah, we have a couple of things here. So we have our MCP server, which provides a set of tools to agents, Cloud Code, Codex, Cursor, to retrieve data, accomplish certain tasks in Datadog. So that's been widely, it's been generally available for about 5 to 6 months now. It's been very well adopted by customers. So that's one thing. The other thing is, again, with bits, we've encoded a lot of platform value and specific knowledge that we have about you as a customer and how your telemetry works, your system work. And so instead of having your external agent coupled with our MCP to accomplish some specific things for you in Datadog, you might want to call bits instead, which, at least in our evaluation, turns to be more accurate. And so we are going to release soon the ability to call our various bits products through MCP. So you can basically call bits as a sub-agent within your own CLI agent.
That's great. So, when I'm thinking about how skills and especially memories work and the things that you just talked about, one thing that I remain excited about working at Datadog is we're solving really difficult problems, which makes it fun. What would you say is the most difficult thing as you're building Bits Chat?
There's quite a few of them. And that's also why there's a lot of value, right? We solved a lot of problems that, our customers don't have to solve and build themselves. But yeah, to mention a couple of specific things, the first one is, obviously, as we all know, agents are nondeterministic. So evaluating the quality and the accuracy of an agent, such as bits, across, the absolutely wide variety of use cases that our customers use it for, is a real challenge. And we have a team of excellent engineers working on that day to day. And we have thousands of evaluation cases where we consistently evaluate bits against. Every time we see in production with our customers bits not quite giving the right answer, not quite doing the task exactly as it should, we gather feedback from customers and we turn that into a flywheel where we use that to test bits against, and we hill climb, right? We make it better over time. I think the other thing is, there's obviously a variety of LLM models to use out there, which come with various trade-offs around costs, around speed, and around accuracy. And so finding the right, the right location to put the cursor on that, 3 points graph, I guess, is a real challenge, and something we, consistently think about. So yeah, those are probably two of the main ones.
Got it. So I think we have a pretty good understanding of where BitsChat is now.
Yes.
So what's next? Where's this heading?
Yeah, sure. So one thing is, we want to go much further than, just a chat interface where you ask questions, you get answers. And we already have a lot of that, but we really want to, we think the future is Bits agents doing work for you on, as autonomous as possible. So we're building a single interface where you can create your agents, kick off your agents, see the work that agents are doing on your behalf. Also deciding what you want agents to do autonomously as opposed to maybe have some level of approval with a human, right? So one of the things we have in Bits as well is remediation actions. So pushing some codes, doing a rollback, doing an infrastructure change, and depending on your appetite for risk as a customer, and also how sensitive some of your services, some of your applications are, you might want to say, hey, I'm happy with Bits just doing things autonomously, maybe on my dev environment, right? Or, if you're in a highly regulated industry, then on your production, heavy traffic application, you might want a few humans to review the remediation before Bits actually does for you. So that's one thing. The second thing is we've talked about personalization through skills, through memory. So that's an area we are investing a lot in. Being across channels, so being available through Slack, in ID, as we've mentioned, and everywhere where our customers work. We also have apps, custom apps with Cursor, with ChatGPT, where you can actually call Bits, use the Datadog MCP tools from there. So that's another big area of focus.
Oh, that's great. So you have viewers super excited about BitsChat. Where do they go to learn more?
Well, to the Datadog app, and you'll have a sidebar chat that you can just go and ask questions. You can, if you're not sure what to do, you can ask it to create a dashboard, or you can even ask it, hey, depending on what you know about me, what could you do on my behalf? And obviously, we have our documentation as well.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us. Really do appreciate it, and looking forward to see where BitsChat goes.
Of course. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed both of those conversations. I know I did. We'll see you next month.